This is a 102.7 FM Toowoomba original podcast.
Welcome everybody to my podcast, Big Little Small Talk. I'm Megan O'Hara-Sullivan and I love to talk, but I also love to listen. If you're new here, welcome. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoy the episode. And I'm with Dr. Mark Copland today. Welcome, Mark.
Thanks, Megan. Good to be here.
I want to read you a quote, Mark. Someone sent me this quote when I was doing a little bit of research. It says, "I love the way he is so generous with his own time and the way he connects and brings other people together. He does a school a favour by speaking at their meeting and then they lend him the bus he needs to get the choir to a function. And everyone is happy. Mark is the common factor. He manages to work hard at making the world a better place. He writes letters, he goes to rallies, he turns up all the time. It could almost be annoying or tiring, but he never makes me feel like I should be doing more. He's still good fun, slightly goofy, a bit nerdy, and genuinely happy. How can he be so serious about making communities better and be completely ridiculous at the same time? Are you Jesus?"
No, I'm definitely. I've got a lot of people can tell you I'm not Jesus. That's a very kind person.
Well, I'll tell
How
you what
much
it is.
did they cost?
No, they didn't cost anything. But Mark, you are back in town. You've
Yes.
recently been over in Broome.
That's right, in the Kimberley, beautiful
And what were
Kimberley.
you doing over there?
So essentially, I went to join my wife, Amber. So Amber went over. She's had a change in roles in life, and she's a social worker. So she was working with a community legal service and an Aboriginal medical service there. And I went and hopped into the local Catholic diocese. And yeah, basically I was babysitting. Hope this doesn't go very broad, but babysitting parishes in between bishops.
Okay.
That's a polite way
you
of saying it.
are kind of like Jesus.
No.
No.
It's not-
Stop making that comparison. Because you had been in Broome at another part of your life. Did you, when you graduated, you went to Broome, is that correct?
Well, yes and no. The Kimberley. But first of all, I first went to Balgo on the edge of the Great Sandy Desert, place where English would be the fifth language of the people. And then Amber and I sort of started our married lives in Derby, which is a town 2.5 hours or 2 and a bit hours north of Broome. Yep.
Okay.
So I've
And
been
that
there
was
before.
working as a teacher?
That was a school
Yeah.
teacher, yeah.
So let's just go back to the beginning. You grew up in Gundawindi?
That's right. Yes, I did.
Yeah.
This is your life. Yeah.
Well, it's better than This Is Your Life, because I want to hear about you.
Yeah.
So what were your parents doing in Gundawindi?
Yeah, my dad was a veterinary surgeon. So he, at that time, University of Queensland used to teach rural track placement. And so he was part of that vet centre. So they ran as a vet clinic as well. And mum, I guess that was back in the day when, you could have single income in a family. So mum was pretty much home carer till we left. She's like a triple certificate nurse. And then she worked in Oma in the aged care place there. Yeah.
So you spent your whole childhood or until you went to university?
Till I was in year 10. And then my parents moved to Perth. My dad was doing a sabbatical with his PhD. And I was sent to boarding school here in Toowoomba.
Tell me about boarding school for you.
Oh, it was, it was, how do I put that? It was okay.
Well, some
Best
people,
time of my life.
yeah, like some people
Yeah.
either love it or they hate it.
Yeah.
I was in the hate it camp. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's a very complicated story, but it was, I was happy at the end of year 12. Yeah.
And
No, not that, people, I had good friends and stuff, but probably.
were you homesick, do you think?
Yeah, I was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Homesick, probably a rebel without a cause a little bit.
Ooh, now it's getting interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
A little
I
less
think I was
Jesus
once-
and a bit more Elvis.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
James
Yeah,
Dean. Okay.
I was once confined to barracks for 16 weeks, and this was at Concordia. And part of that was during the weekends, boys and girls were allowed to sit together, but because of my crime, I wasn't allowed to sit with the girls, and I also had to wear uniform all weekend when they got to wear their day clothes.
Oh, you've got to tell us what you
No,
did.
no.
Oh, come on. That's such a hook.
Um, well, to probably the thing, I wrote a letter. That's probably what got me into trouble. So you have all boarding school, you go to aunties or great aunties or whatever. So on a weekend of leave, I said I was going to my great auntie, who's now gone to God, up on North Street, and I didn't. And I procured alcohol and cigarettes and other things with friends. Then I boasted about it in a letter to a girl, and then the letter never got sent, but the principal got the letter. Yeah.
Wow. Oh, I can just feel your heart dropping
But
into your stomach
but
when you found out that you
but
were busted.
one of life's lessons, the acceptance of my parents when I rang them was just extraordinary, and that will always stay with me, like that forgiveness, and like they didn't condone what I did, but I knew they had my back. So that's always been that was one of life's lessons. Yeah.
Uh, Did you say to them, "This is what I've done," or did the principal get in touch, or was the news there
I
before
think
you
I
did?
got ahead of the curve. I knew it was coming, and I kinda had the guillotine over the weekend, would I be expelled or not? Yeah. But let's move on.
Well, I wanna know some more about your family. So where did you fit in the
I'm
family
the eldest of
of your
4. So it's,
brothers and
3
sisters?
boys 3 boys and 1 sister.
And Mark, tell me, we're gonna talk about your faith and a lot of the work that you've
Yeah,
done particularly in the Catholic Church. So
yeah.
why did you go to Concordia? Were your parents Lutheran?
Oh, well, yeah, see, we could just spend the rest I grew up Bush Baptist. I was baptized a Presbyterian, confirmed an Anglican, and have spent most of my life as Catholic.
Nice.
So we could spend yeah. So,
Why that scattergun approach to religion? And
well, my parents are probably now very much part of the Uniting Church. I guess I was brought up in a very strong faith, and I guess that's just where the journey went. But definitely the Kimberley is where I sort of entered the Catholic Church. So it's had a huge impact on my life. Yep.
yeah, right. So before you went up to with this last job with your wife,
Yeah.
Andrea, some of the jobs that you done was one of the longest jobs that you did was an executive officer at the Catholic Diocese for 20 years.
Yep.
What did that involve?
Well, it was establishing the Social Justice Commission. So under Bishop Bill, I guess, yeah, just trying to carve out a space. They within the Catholic Church, there's a thing called Catholic social teaching, and believe it or not, it's not all about what goes on in the bedroom and what people can and can't do, but it goes way back to Leo the 13th, who our present pope's the next one, and he had a very radical letter called Rerum Novarum, and that was speaking to the people after the Industrial Revolution, and it was kind of trying to carve out a middle way that wasn't communism and wasn't capitalism. And from that, there was this body of work called Catholic social teaching. And so I guess in essence, the job was about working with people on the margins, trying to give dignity, trying to create community, that kind of thing. Yeah.
And so what did an ordinary day for you look like with work?
Well, around the time I started, there was an influx of refugees from South Sudan. And so a lot of that at that time, there wasn't a lot of government support. So it was literally we used to drive down to the airport, pick people up. People would sleep on the floor, or we'd cobble together beds. We'd help people set up bank accounts. We'd help people enroll their kids in school. So there was a lot of that kind of thing. Then as they got settled, homework classes for the students because the parents didn't have English, and that was the birth of trams that started that way, English classes for people. So there was definitely that. I got involved with a community justice group, which is still going, about addressing the overrepresentation of Aboriginal people in our justice system. And so I started part of that group as well.
Let's talk some more about trams because I remember when I first met you and I said we were talking about how Toowoomba celebrates its refugee welcome zone and sort of this incredible job that we have done of
Yeah.
integration.
Yeah.
And I must have said something about it being a government thing. And you said, well, really, how that worked was it was all the faith based groups here in Toowoomba got together and sort of, got it off the ground. So,
Yeah, there was a small group of people, and yeah, we just found a space at St Pat's Cathedral. There was the old preschool from St Saviour's was in the car park there, and the priest at that time gave us the space, and we started operating as a hub there. And so it was beautiful grassroots. For the first couple of years, there was no government funding, and at some stage we said people were really starting to burn out and we need to get organised. And someone got in touch with me, people from Lifeline and Anglicare, and we sat together and wrote a tender to get government funding to support a couple of admin people, but largely it was a volunteer
mm,
organisation.
mm.
Yeah.
So the Toowoomba Refugee and Migrant Centre was born, TRAMS, and this last year was the 20-year anniversary of
Yep.
TRAMS. Where did you get your money from and things for buying kids' school books and things like that? Were you
I,
fundraising as well?
I think that morphed. I mean, the last couple of years, I'm now on the advisory council for Catholic Care, Catholic Social Services. That morphed into a government program, so it's not a standalone organisation anymore. And I guess people, they were quick to get into work, whether it was picking onions or all sorts of things. People were really keen to start in life with a new life from mainly from South Sudan at that time. And they put their money towards that. But yeah, there were generous community members as well.
And Mark, even going back further, why did the South Sudanese come to Toowoomba in the beginning? Do you know any of that history?
There were two, and I'm going to remember Reverend Eileen. She was an Anglican priest, and she had supported there was one family, one Southern Sudanese family, and from that family, when the civil war really erupted and people started and then just word of mouth. And I guess people really, once they started to have a base, they enjoyed regional Australia rather than the big city, but it just kind of spread word of mouth. So it's kind of bizarre that you could walk into a refugee camp in Kenya and people would know the word Toowoomba, which just sounds bizarre, but yeah.
Yeah, I remember all our kids went to school together at St Anthony's, and the boys had a lot of Sudanese friends. And I remember some of the kids being in the back of the car if we were taking them to footy and talking about, oh no, my grandfather's not alive. He got run over by an elephant. And, just culturally so different to
Yeah,
being in
yeah.
Australia.
The light bulb went on for me. One night I was helping, very, very basic because I only scraped through chemistry, but helping with some basic chemistry. And this young man said, Mark, we don't have words for molecules or atoms because we're cow herders, we're pastoral people. And then I went, oh, okay. Because often, you think you're building a bridge. If I can explain to you what an atom and a molecule is in whether it's French or German, then you'll know what I'm talking about. But so it was actually some of those concepts you had to get across as well. Yeah,
I always tell the story about how brave a lot of the kids were. They'd just jump into the pool. They'd never swum before, just go straight to the bottom of the pool and
yeah,
didn't think or felt embarrassed, I'm not sure, to say, I can't swim.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
just the
But it's great. I now work with St Vincent de Paul, and where I am, people in crisis in this city. Often in the waiting room, you'll see people who really fallen through the cracks. Once upon a time, you'd see lots of people from South Sudan. Today, you won't. So, by and large, people have got on their feet, and now we work with a new group of people wanting to make a home and contribute here. So,
Mm.
yeah, I'm really proud to have been part of that.
Oh, absolutely. It's an incredible legacy. You're on Big Little Small Talk. It's Megan O'Hara Sullivan with Dr. Mark Copland. Tell me about your PhD.
Oh, okay. Often that's a bad question for people, but I've
Why? How many
hardly
people have
read.
got a PhD?
Yeah,
Not me,
yeah.
mate.
Yeah, so it was a scholarship with the Queensland government through Griffith Uni, and it's a history of forced removals of Aboriginal people in Queensland between 1859 and 1972. So that's not just the stolen generation. That's when people were removed to Woorabinda, Cherbourg, Palm Island. The purpose of it was one to, I wrote a thesis and analysis, etc. But the other thing that was attractive for me was I created a computer database. So if people want to know where their grandfather was removed from and to, I've given an archival reference. So I sat in the Queensland State Archives for about 18 months, just going through all these records. It's funny really because people often have, oh, all the records are destroyed or, happened under Bjelke Peterson or whatever. But the way bureaucracies work, each removal was done by a police officer often because they were protectors. And then they would claim living away allowance, or they'd claim for the fuel, etc. So there was a bit of a paper trail as to where people were removed from and to.
Right.
Yep.
So that now exists where it hadn't before.
Yep.
So not only was your piece of paper, your PhD a piece of
Yeah.
paper, but you've got this legacy. Is that right?
Well, yeah, I can't tell you like that's now owned by Personal and Family Histories within the Aboriginal Department, the Queensland Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Department. I can't tell you how well it's used or not, but I presume it's a useful tool. Yeah.
Right. And Mark, why was that particularly a topic that you had wanted, or were you given that topic by the ARC or?
So my honours thesis was on the history of the race relations of where I grew up in Gundawindi, around the First Native Police were based at Kalandoon in Gundawindi. So I'd always been interested in that. I then went away and did teaching. I came back and worked here in Toowoomba with Gorby Land Council as a historian. And then I was working on the Ford inquiry into institutional child abuse, and then this scholarship came up. So, I really thought the practical side plus the academic side attracted me.
How long did it take you to you go the 5 years?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And then I think by that time I'd started here working with the Social Justice Commission, and I probably I would have done a bit part-time and but it dragged on. Yeah.
Can you talk some more about that situation in Gundawindi and the race relations there? Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, I think growing up there was a divided town. In 1986, there was the very first human rights inquiry into the race riots in Gundawindi. So very much two sides of the river, and you had Tumala and Boggabilla, and there was extreme poverty and cycles of poverty, but there was also generations of racism. And I guess part of me just wondered where does this all come from? So the book that changed my life was I wanted to be a vet like my dad, and I actually got into vet science. But the year before, I just started 1 year in an arts degree, and I read The Other Side of the Frontier by Henry Reynolds. And in the footnotes, there were all these references to the McIntyre River, and there was this frontier war had happened there. So that started me being interested in my own background. A chance or serendipity would have it. My great grandmother, Margaret Young, was the first white woman born on the banks of the McIntyre River, and I came across letters witnessing a massacre from one of my ancestors in the archives at the Rocks down in Sydney then. Yeah, so it was,
Right. So was your grandmother born on the
my
banks of?
great.
Yeah, well, yeah. On the bank. Why would she have been born on the banks?
Well, there wouldn't have been hospitals or anything
Yeah.
then in that part of the world.
Yeah. And what were they doing there as?
Pastoralists, yeah,
Right.
yeah. Umbercolly, there were growing up at Gundawindi State School, you'd learn that the three properties formed Gundawindi. There was Kalandoon, Umbercolly, and Old Gundawindi. So they were one of the three. Yep.
What sort of influence did your father have on your life?
Oh yeah, huge. I remember with that inquiry into race relations in the Gundawindi area, Dad, as a vet, kind of went over the border and looked after animals in New South Wales as well as Queensland, and he had witnessed like when it flooded, the whole community of Tumala was cut off. They didn't have decent water or housing and stuff. So he put in a submission. I think that would have had an impact on me.
Now, when your kids were still in primary school, you and another family went up to the Tiwi Islands.
It was a year out. I'm probably an average school teacher. I've only ever taught in remote Aboriginal places. So, this friend, Brett and Nicole and their family and Albert and I, there was an advertisement in the Australian and they were setting up a college, Tiwi College on the Tiwi Islands, and it was not Catholic because that's a very Catholic part of the world, but it also wasn't government. It was run by the Tiwi Land Council, and so it was in a remote area called Pikataramore, and they had this model of family group homes. So the students would come from Monday to Friday and live in like a family group of boys and girls, and then they go back to their own community. And I think part of that was born by, even here, mainly at Downlands over the years, because there was a MSc connection. TV students would come down, and often they'd get homesick. Sometimes it really worked well, but other times it didn't. So the idea was to try and have school, more concentrated school, but slightly away. And the elders had made it more than a day's walk if the kids wanted to get back home. But for our children, extraordinary. Barefoot and they were learning school of the air. There was very little internet or TV, and we had our own little waterfall. And, yeah, it was
And how
great
you did
time.
that for a year, did
Just
you?
for a year,
Yeah.
yeah.
And do kids look back on that with and the Rangiras look back on it with great affection?
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah.
And what was the sort of English like up there?
The English is, like, compared to the desert communities, I think English was reasonable, but still very strong in their culture, in their Tiwi language. Very outgoing people, and like they have two faiths. There's Catholic faith, but Aussie rules footballers, unbelievable. They have their own team, the Tiwi Bombers, that started big links with the Essendon Football Club.
And had you been much of an AFL person before that, or
No, that's not my faith.
because you're a Parramatta person?
You've done wonderful
Very
research. You've done good research.
lovely.
But if I had to, my first time in exile in WA, they didn't even have rugby league kind of on the radio or anywhere. So I had to have a team. And at that time, there was the Baby Bombers with Michael Long. So that would, if I had to, but yeah, I don't follow it close.
Yeah, love your league.
Yeah.
And another quote from another friend said he supports Parramatta because he always loves the underdog. Would that be right? I don't know anything about rugby league.
That's
but,
good. Well, it's been right for the last 39 years.
Oh.
I first supported them because they were the best team, in the 1980s, but they've just
You're
been,
hanging in there.
they've just been crap ever since. And so, but that loyalty, yeah, they are definitely an underdog, well and truly now. But when, as an impressionable 9 or 10-year-old, they weren't.
Yeah, right. So speaking of dogs, do I dare ask you who
Uh,
Jasper the dog is?
Yeah, so I had a stint up at St Vincent's Hospital. I was on the exec team there, and part of my role was to get a therapy dog to come and visit patients. And I couldn't find a volunteer or a dog in Toowoomba. And so in desperation, I got this gorgeous Wheaton Border Collie, Jasper, who we got from Pittsworth. I got him assessed with Delta dogs and he passed. So for the last 4 years, my time at St Vincent's, he would visit, and it was especially meaningful during COVID because sometimes there were no visitors allowed. So I was able to bring him in, great comfort, not only to patients but also staff. When we went to Broome, my office was opposite the base hospital in Broome, so we visited every week, and sometimes I'll get special calls in. Now I've started once a week. I go to the hospice here, and they're very short visits, but the impact this dog has is extraordinary.
I guess in terms of your style of helping people, I guess, or that's obviously changed. Like, 20 years ago, you wouldn't have taken a dog in, would you?
I get you're meaning like our understanding.
Yeah, understanding of pastoral care, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
So what are you working at the moment?
Yeah, well, I'm a membership and development officer at St Vincent de Paul.
Yeah, and what does that mean?
So that means we have been operating for 115, or I'll get the stat wrong, but in Queensland for a long time. And it's an unknown, I just think it's an amazing story. There's affordable housing, social housing from here to Roma, Dalby. We run a domestic violence shelter, prisoners on release, plus family support centre where there's direct emergency relief, all sorts, and a wonderful array of youth programs. But we have these little groups in St Vincent de Paul talk. They're called conferences, but they're in our normal everyday language. It's more like branches. And so they would be attached every town. So I'm regionally based out to, Warwick, Gundy, St George, and further afield. So it's my job to support the members and also to try and grow members. So if anybody wants to join, they will be very welcome.
Oh, well, seriously, yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
what
I
what
guess,
type of things do people need to do, and what's the
well, it's
time?
basically there are three parts. It's reaching out to those on the margins with direct interaction. So it could be people out of jail, it could be refugee background, could be people, you know, going through hard times for whatever reason. So you have to have that engagement. Secondly, a meeting, but that scares people, but they're not long and it might be every fortnight. And the third part is that there's some sort of a reflection or spirituality. You don't have to be Catholic to be a part of it. It has grown. It's a Catholic lay organisation, but it's not under the church kind of banner. Well, I'm not putting that right. It's not part of that institution. It's a separate organisation.
Mhm.
That's yeah.
And Mark, do people get training, like you say, you're going out to visit people? I mean, that sounds to me a bit scary and a bit
Yeah, sure,
yeah.
sure. There has been last year we had, or earlier this year, pastoral skills training, so people can receive training in their visitation stuff, and also in giving people emergency relief, meeting with people, they're mentored and supported. So, yeah, there certainly is that. Yeah.
And how would they get in touch to find out some more about it? Give me the
Just
quick
go online. Just go online. Just go Vinnies.org or Vinnie's Queensland. Yeah, or just look up St Vincent de Paul Julia Street and ring and ask for Mark.
And what's the state of, say, Vinnie's these days? Are all the volunteers getting older and you're struggling for people or what?
Yeah. So it's not volunteering is tough, not just for St Vincent de Paul across the whole spectrum. And part of that, I think, is a few things. One, that a lot of people now have to work two incomes to run a household. Then even the other part is once people retire, they're becoming after school care, looking after grandkids, especially during school holidays. They're wealthier and so they can travel. So they're all impediments. We are getting older, the members. So, but I'm looking at other models, and so there's a few exciting models that aren't. They used to be based on a parish or a church, whereas I'm looking at more community-based models. So we've got one that's just refugees and migrants. So that's it's not a geographical space. It's anyone with refugee and migrant needs. They can work. So we're looking at domestic and family violence. What are gaps we don't want to duplicate, but how can we be involved? So we're kind of looking at different ways of doing that.
Yeah. And maybe are they based around schools as well? That's where the
They,
younger people are?
yeah, they
Yeah.
could, yeah, it could be a school,
Mhm.
could be a workplace. So get in touch. Yep.
We will. There's the
Yeah.
pitch. I'll just remind the listeners that they're with me, Megan O'Hara Sullivan, and we're talking to Dr. Mark Copland today, who has done 1,000 good things in his life. But what I want to hear about too is the whipping tree. What is that?
Oh, wow. This is an amazing story. There's a place really close to my heart called Warman or Turkey Creek, and it's on the Great Northern Highway between Broome and and this community was an outstation, a ration station. The frontier wars in that place, they call them the killing times, are more recent, far more recent than here in southern Queensland. There's a book called Every Mother's Son is Guilty, and I mean, I've researched frontier history for a long time, but yeah, very, very brutal. And in this one part of Warman, there are these things, well, not just Warman, in the East Kimberley, they actually had a law where pastoralists could arrest and charge and punish Aboriginal people, kind of like judge, jury, executioner, although that legally they weren't executing. That's not to say they weren't massacres. And in this particular place that they call these whipping trees, there was this tree where on one occasion a woman was, I think she was accused of stealing bread or something, and she was chained to the tree and whipped, stayed overnight. She was close to full term pregnant. She then escaped gave birth to a baby and then later died. Now, that baby's son was a man called Hector Sandalou. And when they formed a school, they invited the Josephite nuns to have a school in Warman. And when they formed a school, Hector wanted this tree to be in the middle. And I won't get the words exactly right, but it's something like, this is the place, this is the heart of the bloodwood tree. This is where we remember the suffering, where we were belted and beaten, but this is where we forgive and we walk on together. And so this extraordinary symbol, when kids are teasing each other in primary school, the teachers or the elders would say, go and sit at that tree and you think about what that man said and he could forgive. So you need to forgive each other. So then moving forward to 2011, there wasn't only a massive flood in Toowoomba, Warman was taken off the map. Like there are refrigerators still up in limbs of trees. So the whole town was just, they had to be evacuated and moved to Kununurra. And this tree was waterlogged and then termite ridden. And so with my last stint, it kind of came across my desk or task to, the tree was falling down. So what to do? So I got in touch with the family and the blokes sat around talking. And then there's this one young woman, Roberta Daylight, who's a Gidja ranger. And Roberta said, what we'll do, we'll cut the tree down, we'll turn it into sawdust, and we'll put that dust on the graves of the family of Hector. And then we'll take a slice of the tree and put it in resin, and we'll keep the plant. And so when I came back in March, I brought 2 slices of the tree, and I'm working with a fantastic guy, Jason Lawler. And Jason has been part of the Bush University, working with Bunya Mountains, Aboriginal people, BPAC, amazing artist. And so we're working to do that. Hopefully in October, we'll take that back. The other part of that was to plant a new tree, a new bloodwood tree. And so that's there. But for me, just an extraordinary example of grace and forgiveness. And that community, like all of the remote communities in Northern Australia, voted yes in the referendum. Something that really hurt me was this idea that the yes case was based on discontent. I thought it was actually just an invitation that came from a place of love, and I don't think we listened.
Well, we have interviewed Marie Toombs just recently too and talked about the referendum and where it's landed us, I
Yeah,
suppose.
yeah, yeah.
But that could take us all day.
It could.
Mark, I wanted to ask you about your family. So you've got
Yeah.
3 sons.
Yeah.
And talk to me about being the father of sons.
Um, I've never really, yeah, I haven't thought, probably haven't, I didn't set out, like parenting's not something you set out to do. And I think our Fred said if you ever did and you knew how much energy, you probably just wouldn't
You
do it.
wouldn't do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you found it challenging? Have you ever got the phone call to say they've been buying the grog and the ciggies?
Oh yeah, there are challenges, as you would know, with, we all go through rebellious stages and everything your parents stand for and do, you don't. So I guess I've just wanted to model how to be I don't know if I'm a good man, but how to try and, yeah, live your life well as a male. I do remember with my roles, I had flexibility where I was able to spend plenty of time when they were in primary school. I really relished that. And I'm loving once they move out and you're not nagging anymore about picking up clothes or etc. And they're not just ringing because you're the ATM. Once they've moved from that, bug into a butterfly, yeah, just having adult conversations.
Mm.
Yeah.
And you enjoy their company. You
Yeah.
enjoy, they've grown into men that you
Yeah.
admire and
Totally.
enjoy.
Yeah. You can see their own extraordinary, the different personalities and the gifts. I'm really proud of them.
No grandchildren yet?
No.
No, me either. Hurry up, boys, whenever you're ready. Mark, Amber had a health scare a couple of years ago. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So Amber, her area of expertise is cancer. Like she worked as when I first knew her, she worked as a cancer oncology nurse. That's her. She knows that well. She worked with the Queensland Cancer Council. She had a desire to change from that health area into social work. And so she got to the end of a degree, done marvelously well. And we were going to celebrate and just had 10 days together at the beach. And I think Amber said, "Oh, I've got a lump in her breast and I better follow through what I'm always telling other women to do is to get it checked out." She couldn't get an appointment here in Toowoomba, so she said, "I'll just do it at the Gold Coast." Anyway, she said it's routine. So I went off with my brother to Stradbroke Island for the day and she had the test. And then cutting a long story short, yeah, it was cancer. So that kind of tipped our whole world upside down. And she had the whole 9 yards. We got it very early and we're on top of it. But yeah, we had the surgery, the radiation, the chemotherapy. So yeah, massive,
Mhm.
massive. Yeah.
Yeah, that must have just been such a terrifying time for you, I can imagine, for both of you.
Yeah. Even though I worked in a hospital, that's not somewhere I would normally go. I did find it an extraordinary privilege to care in a way I've never been able to before. So that was, yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Um, I guess just being, I mean, what you can't say what makes it better, but I guess just being there during the tough times during the chemotherapy, especially,
Mm.
um, just yeah,
Mm.
trying to yeah, just be alongside somebody. Something I've never thought of before is a thing I want to call toxic positivity, where people, and I guess all of us can't handle when things are tough, and we kind of want, oh, you'll get over it, you'll get over it. So yeah, I struggled a little bit with some people. Of course, you want to be positive and you want to do your best, but sometimes it's just so tough. So
So, in reflection, then, what is your advice for your friends who are in that support role, or what would you say? Don't be too toxically positive, or how?
well, just be realistic, I guess, and yeah, and it's so like it's really frightening, and just be
Say
yeah,
that. It's
just
really
yeah.
frightened. I can understand that you'd be frightened. Yeah, yeah. And how are the boys? Were they frightened? They mind?
Um, I think yeah, I think they took on Amber's calm about it, and something that also that I took from that experience is that there was one moment in hospital, and I think it was a doctor or a nurse said, "You don't like being a patient, do you?" And it was this kind of strong dignity that, yeah, Amber wanted. Yeah, I mean, obviously we did everything and we complied in every single way, but don't define me.
As a patient.
Don't define me
Absolutely.
as a patient.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I totally understand it. So going back to you and your career, what, of all of the I know that you don't like to think that you you're a good person. Well, you like to hopefully know that you are a good person, but, as a success in your life, what does a success look like for you at this stage? Having, you know
Yeah, yes, for me is when the margins come to the center. So it's when voices that we haven't heard, we all stop and celebrate. Whether it's from different cultural backgrounds, whether it's sexuality or gender or whatever. Just when I think for me, success is when a group of people who have not had power that we stop and give space for that. So I think that for me,
Mhm.
that's success. Mm.
Yeah. Well, you might have already told me what's the most difficult thing that you've ever done, but
Uh,
tell me about that.
oh no, going to Balgo. So I left. My brother, who's 2 years younger than me, challenged me when I was at University of Queensland. Said you just hang around the same people. And I went, "Stuff you."
It's a competition, okay? You wanna make
Yeah,
it a competition?
yeah, and so I said, "Right, so I'm going to Adelaide." So I went to Adelaide to do this remote Aboriginal education where you spent 13 weeks on a prac, and I was in Ernabella, north of Pitjantjatjara Lands. And I then got this job in Balgo, and I'd fallen in love with amber and, yeah, so lonely and so tough. But it's, yeah, probably still one of the best things I've ever done, but that was hard, yeah.
How had you and Amber met?
Um, Again, we'll have to do part 4 with a religious the religious spaghetti bowl. Um, Great youth group was how we met, and then I think I was probably the last person Amber ever thought of being with, and then so when I went to Balgo, we had this massive letter writing, and you got the mail plane once a week, and so, yeah, you'd put pour out your heart in letters. I think we paid Telstra so much money because there were no mobile phones, and you'd ring up and
It's expensive
I'm gonna ring up because I'm not talking to you, and you can have a fight and pay
then.
pay all that money. So that's how we got to know each other, probably through writing
Yeah.
letters. Yep.
And there's something to be said, something beautiful about that too, because you will probably write something in a letter that you wouldn't say out loud, would
Yeah,
you?
that's right.
You think that your priorities have changed since you have gotten older?
Yeah, definitely. I think that there's a fantastic book by Richard Raw called The Second Half. And the first half, it's all about your own building up, whether it's your profession, your family life, etc. So I think now it's more about thinking a bit broader about community, about organisational stuff, not just about myself.
I find it hard to believe that you have ever thought just about yourself,
Oh,
Mark. No, I do find that hard to believe. I think you're being ridiculously modest there. Now, I know you do like a theatre restaurant, and you do like possibly a little bit of drag, but
man,
that's bad. I'm gonna ask you in a minute what your favourite song is, or the song that can't keep you off the dance
oh,
floor.
okay.
But I do wanna know, would if I asked you about the Royals, would that be too pedestrian? That would be, not something that
Well,
went.
I did. It depends how much time you got. I actually did because I'm a Republican. That's going to be a tough one to answer. So I'd say something really sad like King Gutho, who played for Parramatta until he left. But
Not King Wally.
so no, but yeah. So I don't give it time of day to royals. But there's a fascinating. I was scratching. How can I like a royal? There's a story. Christ the Hospital College in the UK. And my uncle taught at Concordia, and a friend of his who I think taught there too ended up as principal of this college. And I had to write this down. It was founded in 1552. And the reason it was founded was King Edward VI. He went to church, and I think it was around Christmas, and he was challenged by the Bishop of London. What are you doing for the poor children? And so they founded this school based on equity that those who couldn't afford fees would get the very best education. And they have these bizarre yellow stockings that they still wear, and they were so they could see the lice to pick off.
Wow.
Anyway, I think it was just named the Independent School of the Year for England. So King Edward for starting that school. That'd be whatever King Edward the Sixth.
Okay.
But I don't have a picture of him on my wall.
Well,
Yeah,
it's a very fitting
yeah,
story just the
yeah.
same. Where do you kind of see yourself in another 5, 10 years' time, Mark, do you think?
So in some ways, still just involved with community organisations. Yeah, I still would imagine that. Yeah, somehow I have a passion for history and for sharing history and especially celebrating Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. Yeah, it's just something area. I can't tell you a role I'm aspired to or anything like that.
Why do you think your friend said that you're goofy and a bit nerdy?
Probably because it's true.
What's something goofy that Mark
Um,
Copland does?
well, this would answer the dance question.
Okay.
It's probably a reason that would keep me out of politics, but there may not be. I think there is footage somewhere. I once wore one of those. I think I've worn a Borat suit and well, that
Mm.
I know.
The Mankini.
Yeah, that one.
Oh.
And a G-string once. And I once did that Echo Beach by Martha and the Muffins. So that would be a song.
Is that your song that can't keep you off the dance?
That one, or I'm such a bad dancer. Like Amber choreographs those theatre restaurants, and she would hide me. She would hide me at the back. So probably like Beds Are Burning by Midnight Oil would be one. Yeah.
I
So,
love it.
but
I love it.
I'd have normal clothes, I hope.
I can't get the idea of you in a green mankini out of my mind now, and I wish you hadn't mentioned it.
I know. See, and that's why and thank God there's no social media then.
That's right.
Yeah,
No
it
photos.
was probably a Nokia phone, and, with grainy footage.
Well, Mark, I know that we will have to come back for 2, 3, and 4 episodes because I know that you will continue to do that great work in the community and not make us feel guilty about what we're not doing. But thank you for all that you're doing, and thank you for being my guest on Big Little Small Talk.
My total pleasure. Thank you.
That's it for this week. Thanks for joining me on Big Little Small Talk. I hope you can make the time to join me next week. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on your favourite podcast app.
You've been listening to a 102.7 FM Toowoomba original podcast. For more podcasts or to listen to live and local Toowoomba radio, please visit 1027.com.au or download the Community Radio Plus app.